why did you come back to India and tell a little bit about your experience in doing that? You were in New York beforehand, and
Yeah, I think, look, the opportunity in India was significant at that time, or at least it looked on paper. You're sitting there looking at potential internet growth. You're looking at a market that was very early in its evolution. So we hope that there's a big opportunity to start get in early, build the companies that would define
yeah.
the internet sector, the mobile sector in India, and be a part of that. So it was an exciting opportunity.
So how many investments have you made now in India?
We have 10 investments in India so far. We've invested in aggregate of $60 million.
Okay.
And we're quite excited at how they've evolved over the course of the last 5 years. I think
Right.
the next few years will be quite defining because we're hoping that the inflection point related to internet penetration and growth will propel these companies to really the stage where they can stand out there and be large, independent public companies.
Right. Because India really hasn't had the success stories on the IPOs that China has had. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I think the infrastructure, technology, internet infrastructure development is challenged here. And so until we see the numbers grow at the same level that we've seen them in China, we're only at 13 million subscribers in India. We have a huge opportunity, I guess, in terms of growing that. And once that happens, I think you'll start to see these businesses scale up. We already have one. Naukri's done a fantastic job as a company that's taken advantage of what is there in the market and has built a very profitable large company off of that. And I think you'll start to see some other businesses reach that level in the coming years.
I see. Well, Naukri, it looks like it could be a very big home run for you if you cash in those shares, right?
Yes, they've done well so far, and I think there's a tremendous upside as the internet hits its inflection. So we're long-term supporters of the business and are very happy with how it's been executed.
Well, what's interesting about your background here in India is that you got very involved in running one of the startup companies, Cleartrip. Can you talk about why you got involved and what you learned from that experience in actually running a startup? I know now you're a VC, but what was it like to be an entrepreneur doing an India startup?
So I think part of the philosophy that we had when we came to India was you have to do something in order to be able to advise people on how to do it. So
Okay.
I think there was always this desire to say, get involved, get your hands dirty with something. And the opportunity presented itself with Cleartrip right away, where we weren't clear how many investments we'd make. We wanted to be active in the market, but we wanted to make sure whatever we invested in was successful. So the chance came to be a part of building that company for a few years, and I took it, and I think it was a fantastic experience in terms of seeing how to go from a standing start to actually a sprint, quite honestly. And
A sprint.
and then now we've kind of paced the business more for a marathon, and I think now we've kind of had a chance to see that evolution been successful so far in creating value in it, and at some point we'll unlock that value and hopefully get some returns out of it. But I think it's been a tremendous opportunity to do it firsthand.
So why is Cleartrip still around where Travel Guru actually ended up being acquired by an American company, Travelocity?
Well, I think Cleartrip's always had a desire to be a large independent business, and we continue to build that way. We have been well capitalized, so we think that there's a tremendous upside in the market still. And so there's been no urgency to exit or no urgency to necessarily sell. And so at this point, we continue to build and believe that we'll be one of the dominant players in the space.
So in setting up the venture capital business here, that was a very startup kind of endeavor as well. Even just getting office space was kind of a hassle, right?
Yeah, I think it's still a startup, quite honestly. It's just me in the office. So,
Okay.
We have a very lean operation. We live by the philosophies that we tell our companies to live by, and that we don't have a lot of overhead. We don't put a lot of excess costs on the system. So it was a challenge at the beginning. It remains exciting because every day is a day in the life of a startup for me.
So this was actually your conference room for a while, right? The Wellingdon Sports Club?
We used to spend a lot of time here in meetings. Actually, at the beginning, I didn't have a separate office for the VC side, so I used to do my venture meetings in Cleartrip as well. And then when we started to run out of space at Cleartrip, realized that we had to find other places to meet people, and this was a nice, convenient location with a bit of a different atmosphere.
Absolutely. It's a very kind of old world here. So you mentioned that yesterday you were at a luncheon where a number of VCs were talking about some of the issues in India venture capital, and one of the issues is that there haven't been the kind of exits that seemed so promising a couple of years ago. So maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. I think that we're coming on 5 years of doing this here. The question becomes, when and how does it ultimately generate returns? And we're accumulating a lot of paper value, which is exciting and compelling. However, at some point you have to start thinking about how to unlock that. And I think that was the discussion around the table in general.
Any conclusions?
No conclusions. I think
Okay.
the conclusion is that, we have to keep waiting and watching. The fundamental principles upon which we came still are sound. Demographics are good in India. Economy is robust and growing, so we should get there soon.